All right, we're live. Cool. Awesome. It's good to be back. I am planning on doing a lot more live content. It's always a busy couple of months, and so we kind of cycle through. Sometimes we're consistent with our Facebook Live, and sometimes we're not. You can tell I've got a nice farmer's tan going on from being at the racetrack. So the past month and a half or so, I've been really busy with events. Went to SCCA time trials at Carolina Motorsports Park. Awesome time. It's a great program. Definitely check it out. We're a partner of theirs for that event, the national tour. And we will be at NCM in September. It's going to be awesome. Got a couple of ambassadors that are going to be going to other events. If you're interested in that, let us know. So this week's topic, it's going to be kind of quick. I'm going to plan to end by 5:15 or so. But I want to talk about app compatibility. A couple of things. Why do we update the app? What does that do for you? What benefits does that provide? So we'll talk about why we update the app, what the latest version is. I'll show you how to update the app on an iOS device. And we'll talk a little bit about what hardware works with the Apex Pro app. So say you don't have an iOS device, you're not an iPhone user, but you have some old devices sitting around, your family members with other devices. What devices can you use that will work? If anybody wants to let me know, I think audio is working, but let me know if you can't hear me or anything like that. Don't just let me go on. So the first thing I'm going to do is copy and paste a really cool article. It's just iOS 12 supported devices list. I'll put it in the comments. If you're interested or you want to share this with anybody, this is a great resource. It's just a website talking about what devices can update to iOS 12. So iOS 12 is Apple's latest software. Obviously, they're already working on 13, but iOS 12 is what's needed for the most current version of the Apex Pro app. So if you're trying to update the Apex app and it won't allow you to update it, you probably need to check your software version and update to iOS 12 or the latest version of iOS 12. And I do hear, talking to people, some hesitancy about updating OS. Because you might like it a certain way, you don't want it to change, and have to relearn how to navigate things. And I get that because once you get used to what you're using, it's nice for it to stay the same. The changes all in 12. Once you get onto 12, all of the iterations in 12 are pretty similar. So there's no reason not to update to a newer one of those. But the main reason, I've only learned this recently, why Apple or anybody posts a software update or why they update their software is primarily to protect you, to protect the information on your phone, to keep people from hacking it. A good way to think about that is the longer a software version is live, the more people can learn how to hack it, right? The more people can learn what the weak points are and how they can get in there and manipulate the information and steal information off your devices and stuff like that. So long story short, before you try to update your Apex app, just make sure that you're on iOS 12. Pretty much any Apple device that you're going to use, unless you're on a really old iPhone, is going to be able to update to iOS 12. What's really simple, and it's in the article that I posted in the comments, is any device that can run on iOS 11 can update to 12. So iPhone 5S or newer. So if you have an iPhone 4, iPhone 3, something like that, you won't be able to run the Apex app. Sorry about that. But if you're iPhone 5S or newer, or the most recent generation of iPod Touch, or the same generations, and it's on this list, you can look up and read everything about it yourself. iPhone X, iPhone 8, 8 Plus, 7, 7 Plus, 6S, 6S Plus, 6, 6 Plus, iPhone SE, iPhone 5S, all of those work. Also, the second generation iPad Pro, first generation iPad Pro, iPad Air, iPad Air 2, iPad Mini 4, the Mini 3, the Mini 2, and the sixth generation iPod Touch. So pretty much any iOS device you're going to find sitting around, unless it's just covered in dust, will update to iOS 12. So how do you do that? Real quickly, if you're not familiar with where your software update is, I'll just go to settings right here. So settings, and then you'll have obviously your screen for all the settings on your phone. Real simple, we'll go down to general, which looks like that, and then software update. And that'll check for updates and let you know if you're on the latest version of iOS. I actually updated my iOS today, so I'm on the latest version of 12. But you have to cognizantly do this. Your phone will send you a push notification to ask you to update the software. But if you start updating it and then ignore it, then it'll stop. It needs a Wi-Fi connection to do it, and a lot of times it just needs to sit. Sometimes it'll actually automatically update overnight. Real simple, but I think that's good information to know. So why do you keep your phone on the latest iOS? It's really to protect you. They're always going to be improving it. It is going to change the interface subtly, but in my opinion, it always gets better. Coming from a developer's perspective, what we do with our app is we're constantly interacting with our customers that are using the app and seeing how people are experiencing it, like what different features people are using. Right? So when you can kind of monitor what pages people are going to, and I can figure out, oh, this is kind of cumbersome, we're going to change this. So a good example of that on the most recent app, I'll show you real quick. When you're connected to hardware, if you go to tracks and records to select your track, previously you had to select your track, tap drive, and then that would basically just select the track for you, right? That would basically just tell you that you're at the track. Now, do you see what happened right there? I clicked the track, I clicked drive, and it took me to the drive screen. So hopefully that simplifies. What I noticed is a lot of times people would either not allow the GPS to know where their phone is when they first open the app, or they would select a track manually or change the track after it was auto-selected. There's just all sorts of different things that can go wrong. So now when you pick the track manually on the track list, it's going to take you straight to the drive screen. So that's a great example of what the updates will do for you. We have to operate under the assumption that you're updating your phone to the latest iOS because it actually makes it way easier for us to produce an app on that. So talk a little bit about iOS versions. Again, that link is going to show you what devices can update to iOS 12. Anything that will run 11 will run 12. Basically, 6th generation iPod Touch or iPhone 5S and newer. So it's a very large list of hardware. And we talked about updating while we update our app. So what happens if you don't update? Basically, your phone's just going to get funkier and slower. So like a lot of times the things that they change are like when you swipe something, how quickly it responds, or screen loading times for opening different things. It's usually an improvement. On the older phones, like a 5S or a 6, it'll probably hurt your battery life. So when you update to iOS 12 or 12 generations, that's something that was big publicity thing. Apple did that. They throttled back battery performance, right, on the older hardware on newer software. I personally don't think it's a big issue because I'm kind of an eternal optimist and I see them as a fairly morally responsible company. That's up to everybody's individual opinion. We won't get into that. But again, check out iOS compatible devices that we put in the link there. So make sure that you update the app. Now on the app itself, I kind of showed a little bit about how to update your iOS software, but to update the actual app, what you do is go to the App Store on the home screen, right here. I purposely have not updated to the latest Apex Pro app, so we just wanted to show that. So there is a new update, 7.12, went out late last week. It's now available. So if you open up the App Store, the way to tell any of your apps if you're up to date or you need to update something else, it'll give you a notification. Right here on the home screen, you'll see a little red thing like I see on the settings right there that'll say, hey, click me, right? So I'm going to click App Store. And then down here at the bottom, on this bottom row, you can go to Updates. You go to Updates, and it'll show you which apps you need updating or which ones have been updated recently. And I'm looking at this guy right here. I can see that the cloud little symbol is next to Apex Pro. To update it, I just tap that, and then it's going to take a second to download to the phone. You need cell service or Wi-Fi connection to do this. So if you're using a device that does not have that connection, tether it to Wi-Fi, something like that. That's how quick it happens. Now I can open up the app, and I've got the most recent version. So we update our app for the same reason that anybody updates their app. It's mostly to fix bugs. You can also see when you update the app, there's some information about what we've changed, what the newest version has in it. So I'd recommend reading that. I always try to. I'm not a great reader. I like to just do stuff and don't read about it. You can see right here when you're downloading the app, it's going to have kind of some update notes. What's on this update? On the most recent update, we removed the auto submission for the top 10 scoring. So before, if you did a session, you saved your data, it would go submitting, and it would submit it to the server to compare you against the other drivers. All of that's operating under the assumption you have enabled crew view in your user profile. So if you have the crew view enabled in your user profile, and submit your data. We got rid of that because you have to have a really strong cell signal for that to work quickly. So like I was in Road Atlanta about 3 weeks ago, and it took like a minute or two to submit the session where we just wanted to look at our data. So now you have to submit your session manually. It's just like sharing data, swipe it right to left, press top 10, nice and easy. Also improved crew view, the experience using the map when you go into crew view. Now we've clustered tracks in the areas together. It's a little bit easier to look at. The loading speed for the crew view live feeds faster. When you select the tracking records, it automatically moves you to the drive view. Improved spacing of buttons to reduce the interference on iPhone 10. So Michael Bosch, iPhone 10, got some updates there for you. So that's all just in the notes on the update. So that's another reason to update it. So all that comes down to let us know when you have issues or you want to see something else. Worst we can say is no, right? But we love your feedback because that's what all these changes are based off of. We do track crashes. We get reports and stuff like that from the App Store, so we're able to see when the app's crashing, what version's crashing. What's amazing to look at is the statistics of app crashes. It's usually not the most recent version of the app. It's usually an older version of the app on an older OS. So if you're having that issue, just update your OS, update to a newer app, and you will be good to go. The latest app, this current app it might have 0 crashes actually, but it's pretty cool to see. So that's a good reason to update the app. If you want to check your app version and you're on the Apex Pro app, it's just down here under About. That's going to tell you about the Apex Pro software. You can see at the top, it'll tell you your software version. If you're connected to a device, it'll tell you a firmware version. So we're here to talk about software, but I'll touch on firmware. I've covered all the things I wanted to go over with software. So basically update your app, update your OS. It'll make the experience way better. Firmware. What is firmware? Firmware is the software that lives on the circuit board. So this device has firmware. The Apex device has firmware. So the firmware lives on the circuit board. So firmware is software embedded onto the circuit board of the device. So the hardware is the actual physical components. Firmware is the software that's on it. Software is just the name for what that firmware is, right? It's just another name for it. So your firmware version on Apex Pro, if it's 2.8, 2.81, I think, or newer, then it's got all of the most recent features. So firmware basically only changes when we have to change it because we need a new supplier for one of the pieces on the circuit board. It's not something that we change dramatically. If you had an Apex Pro over a year ago, you would remember we did a big firmware update where we actually had to change some of the componentry on the board, so we had to manually update all of the older circuit boards, which has been done. That won't be a problem. Lesson learned, and we're going to get better going forward. Ended up really not being too big of an issue. So if you do need to update your firmware, if you get a push notification when you connect to an Apex Pro unit, it will prompt you to email us. We'll look you up. It's not a big deal. We'll send you a shipping label, free shipping back to us. We'll take a look at it. We'll send it back to you. We'll also give you the option to buy a brand new unit, just because the brand new units have a little bit better battery indicator, and yours might be kind of worn out. We'll give you a brand new unit at a discounted rate if you have an old unit that needs new firmware. So let your friends know if anybody asks you. So the latest version of the app is 7.12. I would definitely recommend making sure you're on 7.12 before your next time to track. And as always, let us know if there's anything we can do to help you. I'm going to keep the Facebook Live sessions a little bit shorter than I have been. I've just noticed looking at the data and the numbers, because data, right? Motorsports data. But on Facebook Live, it always seems to peak around the 10-minute mark, peak viewership. And we want to make sure that we're just keeping people engaged. Thanks for the like, Michael Bosch. Appreciate it. The last thing, I'm sorry. I sent out a newsletter asking for reviews of the product on our website. That was awesome. I think 3 or 4 people wrote reviews. A couple of them were pretty funny and really awesome for apextrackcoach.com. Please do the same for the app. If you genuinely like the app, leave us a review on the App Store. 4 or 5 stars. Leave a quick comment about what you like about it, what you hate about it, whatever. We want to know the honest truth, but that really helps when people are looking at the app in the App Store and trying to decide if they want to use, us or another offering that's in that kind of competitive space. So check out the App Store when you're updating your app. Hop in there and leave us a review. It goes a long way. With internet-based businesses these days, that's what it's all about. Online reviews, customers relying on other people's opinions. It's pretty cool. It's a challenging world. Let us know if you need anything, and we'll be back soon. I'm going to probably start doing some more specific, data-specific videos or track-specific videos. I'm sorry, with data. I was working on one right before I did this. So if you have I might be reaching out to people for some data sessions for tracks that I don't have stored on my phone. So I kind of want to do some, under 5-minute videos. Hey, here's 3 or 4 things to look at in your app for a certain track, whether it's, Barber Road Atlanta, Laguna Seca, Road America. I'm going to a new track. I want to know what to look for in my data when I get there. Here's 3 things. Right? That's what we're going to be working on. All right. Thanks, everybody, for your time. I appreciate you joining. I'm going to go ahead and log off. Remember to update your app. Give us a nice review on the App Store. Funny is even better. If you can make a joke, whatever. That's always appreciated. And thank you very much for supporting what we do. Have a good week.